It's time for Kadlec on Call on News Radio 610 KONA. It's your chance to learn valuable health information right here in our community. Now, the host of Kadlec on Call, here's Jim Hall.
And a very good Wednesday evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Kadlec on Call. And every Wednesday evening at this time from 6 until 7 p.m., we come your way and talk about particular health or medical topics of interest to our listeners in the Tri-Cities and Southeast Washington and listener region of KONA 610 Radio. And tonight we have a very fun topic, but a very memorable and very emotional topic as well. The fun we'll get to later in the program, and it'll become painfully evident when that happens. But the first part of our program, and throughout this program, actually, we're going to focus on an organization called Make-A-Wish. And Make-A-Wish is just that. It's an organization across the country and actually around the world that provides special activities and life experiences for young children who are impacted by serious illness. And so we felt that we wanted to spend tonight's program raising the awareness of Make-A-Wish because obviously it's heavily volunteer-driven around this region and around the state and around the country. And so we want to spend some time raising the profile in your eyes about Make-A-Wish. And we're also going to meet a Make-A-Wish recipient who happens to be an aspiring sports broadcaster, and he's a Coug. So that's two very good feathers in his cap. But we'll meet him in a little bit. But first, we want to welcome to the microphone Meredith Fain. And Meredith is with Make-A-Wish, and she is a referral and medical outreach manager for the region, which includes Washington State and the state of Alaska, if I'm correct. And Meredith, first of all, let's see. Are you on the phone with us, right?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You can hear you just fine. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. And as you heard, we wanted to spend the evening talking about your organization and all the wonderful work that you do on behalf of children who are impacted by illness. And so why don't you begin by just explaining a little bit for our listeners, a little more detail of just what Make-A-Wish is.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. This is really great.
Absolutely.
So basically what we do is we grant wishes to kids that are battling life-threatening medical conditions. And these kids are, between the ages of 2.5 and up to 18. And the wishes really kind of fall into 4 categories. Sometimes kids wish to go places like Hawaii and Disney are pretty popular. Sometimes they wish to have things like a bedroom makeover or a new computer system. Sometimes they wish to meet people. And sometimes they wish to be something for a day. Sometimes kids wish to be a superhero, or they might wish to be a chef or a rock star. Really, the wishes are only limited by the kid's imagination. And what we really see is kids experiencing a transformational moment. These kids are really sick, and the wish gives them something else to focus on for a while. So that's sort of the heart of what we do at Make-A-Wish.
And obviously, these wishes are granted by your organization, but a lot of it involves people donating of their time and their precious money as well to pay for and cover the costs and make these things possible, correct?
Absolutely. We do receive a lot of donations from companies that donate things like airline miles or park tickets, but we do rely on donations from many generous people all over Washington State and all over Alaska. And, most of our donations do come from everyday folks that just send in $10 or $20 or whatever they can do. But it all stays right here in our community of Washington and Alaska, and it all helps to grant the wishes of these kids.
Now, how does one go about qualifying? I hate to use that word, but how does one go about getting a wish? And how does that process work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So if there's someone that wants to know if their child qualifies, what they should do is they should actually contact me, and they can contact us at our 1-800 number, or they can contact our website, which is akwa.wish.org, and they can let me know about their child, and I can talk to them and find out what the medical condition is. And then the next step is we work with the child's doctor to determine whether or not the child meets the criteria. So if people are wondering, they should definitely give us a call, and we can help figure that out, they can call our 800 number, which is 1-800-304-9474. And also doctors and nurses can refer their patients directly to me if they believe they have kids that qualify for wishes.
Now, your region that you work with covers the states of Washington and Alaska. How many wishes will you grant in that two-state region over the course of a year?
Well, last year we granted 350 wishes.
Almost one a day.
Yeah, almost one a day. That's right. And this coming year, we're hoping to grant even more wishes than that. This year, we're hoping to grant 368 wishes in Washington and Alaska.
So give me an idea, out of those 350, what is one or two that maybe stands out for their star power, their uniqueness maybe?
Oh, well, we have a wish coming up that is for a child who wants to share her story of battling cancer, and she's sharing that story through a cartoon. And so we're working with local graphic artists and cartoon artists and movie producers that have produced a cartoon to help tell this child's story of her battle with cancer. That's one of the really fantastic wishes that we've granted in the last year. We also granted a really great wish for a little boy who wished to be a superhero, which was really fun to watch. He wanted to be Lightning Lad, and he helped save the music scene in Seattle, which was really, really fun.
And I was going to say, it was interesting, just this past Sunday, I'm sure you watched it, but 60 Minutes had a program profiling Make-A-Wish nationally, and I'm guessing you probably had some response since that program aired?
We have. The story that they told on 60 Minutes was really great for a lot of reasons. You know, one, it showed just how important our communities are to our wish kids. You know, it really did a great job of profiling just how important volunteers are to our organization. And I think it also did a really good job of just showing how hard our kids struggle and how hard they fight and just how important wishes are, you know, because it gives them something to look forward to, gives them something they can have control over, and then gives them something to look back on and remember during those times when maybe they're struggling again with their medical condition. So, yeah, we've definitely had a lot of web traffic, a lot of inquiries, and a lot of questions about Make-A-Wish from that news story. It's been great.
In reading a little bit about the history of Make-A-Wish, I was amazed to learn that it's been around since 1980, which means, what is that, 35 years?
Exactly. This year is the 35th anniversary nationally for Make-A-Wish, and they talked a little bit about the first wish. Chris Gracious in Phoenix, Arizona, he wished to be a police officer, and his community worked together, and they made that wish possible for him. They, you know, gave him a ride along in the police cars, and, you know, made him a little uniform, and sadly he did pass away, and they gave him a full honor guard processional funeral with all the police cars right down through the city of Phoenix. And, you know, from that, those people said, you know what, we need to do this for more kids. And so since that time, you know, that's grown, and now there are over 60 chapters of Make-A-Wish all over the country and many, many chapters all over the world. So since that time, we've seen just how important wishes are to kids.
Now, kind of a serious tone to a question that I want to ask is you touched on the young boy that was featured in the 60 Minutes piece and this young boy who basically inspired the start of Make-A-Wish back in 1980. Both of those children passed away, but I know that's not, I mean, the wishes don't necessarily go to patients. They're patients with serious illness, but it's not a terminal illness situation, right?
Right. That's right, Jim. So when we first started Make-A-Wish back then in the 80s, that it was a requirement that kids had to be, you know, terminal to qualify for a wish. But in the 90s, we expanded the scope of our mission to include kids with life-threatening illnesses. So now, for example, all kids with cancer qualify for a wish. All kids with cystic fibrosis are eligible for wishes. all kids that have had organ transplants are eligible for wishes. So certainly we've expanded the scope of our mission, and that's no longer a requirement in order to qualify for a wish.
Well, a wonderful organization, and I know I'm going to let you kind of tee up a little bit. You're going to bow out for a minute or two and come back for the final 15 minutes of our program so that we can meet a Make-A-Wish recipient, because he has to also call in by phone because he's a college student. But maybe Spencer is who we're going to be talking to, Spencer Anderson from Richland. But maybe, obviously, it's stories like him that inspire you and your organization to really keep these issues out there in front of our communities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Spencer is an amazing kid, and I think after talking to him, you are going to be very inspired, just like we all are, by his strength and his wisdom, and just what a great kid he is.
Okay, so we're going to let you go, but I wanted to put the phone number to call for people who are interested more about Make-A-Wish is 800-304-9474, or the website, which is AKA...
it's AKWA.
AKWA, so Alaska, Washington abbreviations, akwa.wish.org. Is that correct?
That's right.
Sounds good. We will let you go, and we will meet Spencer, and we'll talk to you later in the program. Thanks, Meredith.
Thanks so much.
All right, that's Meredith Fain, who is with the Referral and Medical Outreach Manager for Make-A-Wish, Alaska and Washington. And again, those numbers we'll give throughout the program if you have more of an interest in how you can help out with the Make-A-Wish Foundation here in our region and across the country as well. We have to take our first break of the evening. We'll be back with a Make-A-Wish recipient, Spencer Anderson, in just a moment. You're listening to Kadlec On Call.
You're listening to Kadlec On Call on 610 KONA. This program is not a substitute for direct consultation with your own healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare provider for your specific condition, especially if you have or suspect you may have a medical problem. Now back to Kadlec On Call. Here again, Jim Hall.
And welcome back to Kadlec On Call. Tonight we're making a wish. We're profiling the organization, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which provides wishes to seriously ill children all across the country and around the world. And we wanted to raise the profile of it because it's volunteer-driven and volunteer financially driven as well. And so, again, that number to call, 800-304-9474, or you can go on to akwa.wish.org. We had touched on that we have a wish recipient with us tonight, but he can't be with us live in the studio because he's a busy student over in Pullman at WSU. And Spencer Anderson, I think he's a graduate of Hanford High School, if my memory serves correctly. But he's also studying broadcasting at WSU in the Murrow College of Communications. And Spencer, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. I know you're in between getting ready. You've probably been studying all day.
Oh, let's go ahead and say that I have been,
okay.
yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us tonight. We wanted to touch a little bit on your personal story and how you came to get a Make-A-Wish wish. But I know, I guess we'll fast forward a little bit. The wish recipient, I know your ultimate goal is to work in the field of sports broadcasting, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I enjoy sports. I'm not athletic at all, so I decided that sports broadcasting that's kind of my end goal, play-by-play broadcasting.
Nice.
Or sports anchoring, something of that nature.
Uh-huh. Well, that's awesome. Well, why don't you share at the subject at hand, Make-A-Wish, and you were diagnosed with leukemia, is that correct? Talk a little bit about your diagnosis and what that was like, and just what you'd like to share about that experience.
Absolutely. I was actually diagnosed with lymphoma.
Uh-huh.
And that was, my diagnosis was in March, 3 years ago, March 2012. I was 16 at the time. And obviously that was a shock
Sure.
to our family. And at that point, I went through chemotherapy treatment, missed about 5 months of school as I went through that treatment. And it was during the summertime that my broadcasting instructor, Scott Page at Hanford High School, he actually was the first one to suggest to me contacting the Make-A-Wish Foundation for a wish. He suggested that I go be a Mariners broadcaster for a day. Go up to the radio booth and broadcast a Mariners game, and I liked that idea. But I was thinking that the Make-A-Wish Foundation was only for terminally ill children. And like I always said, since I didn't plan on dying anytime soon, I wasn't too concerned about potentially having to make that decision as to what I would do with my wish had I gotten one from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So in June of that summer, when I was in the middle of my treatments, my family was contacted by a couple of volunteers from the foundation locally in the Tri-Cities, and lo and behold, I was offered the opportunity to make a wish.
So then do you get to kind of specify what you would ideally like to do? Is that what they do? What would your wish be?
Yeah, in fact, there were 4, if I remember correctly, 4 different types of wishes. There could be a wish to be, a wish to go somewhere, a wish to have specific something, and I can't remember exactly right now what the 4th one was, but so my wish, especially after talking with my broadcasting instructor at Hanford, I really knew immediately what I wanted to do, and that was to go and be in the broadcast booth at a Seattle Seahawks football game.
There you go.
And so whether that was a wish to go to a game or wish to be a broadcaster, it kind of encompassed a couple of the categories there.
Well, and I've seen the video that they did on your particular story. You got some nice access. You got to go to a press conference with Pete Carroll and all of that kind of fun stuff. Oh
yeah, we were there for the weekend. It was actually Christmas weekend, right before Christmas in December of 2012. So we got there on a Friday afternoon. Or I guess we got there Friday morning and went to their practice, the Seahawks practice, before their Sunday game. So we had access, our family did, to the Seahawks practice facility and Coach Pete Carroll and his press conference at that time, as well as getting to meet a couple of the players one-on-one. And then, of course, on Sunday, with it being game day, there was a whole bunch of opportunities to visit with broadcasters, go on the air for the pregame and postgame radio show, and then, of course, more press conferences. So there was definitely a lot of opportunities. Sometimes looking back, thinking about it, I have to imagine that I don't know how I couldn't have been overwhelmed with so much going on.
No
so
kidding.
Many new experiences at once.
You were not starstruck at all, were you?
Well, I tried not to be because, that's my future goal, right?
Right. But and if I read that, you got to meet Al Michaels?
Yeah, in fact, that was it was a Week 16 game, and NBC was Sunday Night Football to do flexible scheduling, and I had told my mom a couple weeks prior, because the game was against the 49ers, of course, at the time, a very hated rival. And so I was like, Mom, there might be a chance that they switch it to Sunday Night Football, which would be great, because then I could meet Al Michaels and Bob Costas.
Sure.
And then lo and behold, a couple weeks later, when we found out the news it was being flexed, it was another dream come true.
Oh, that's awesome. So what was the highlight of all the guys you got to meet or the things you got to do? Was there one thing that stood out the most?
Yeah, looking back on it, I would have to say meeting Pete Carroll definitely, I think, was one of the highlights. And that was, of course, I met him on the Friday before the game on Sunday at practice. And as we were touring the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, we went upstairs to where the coaches' offices were. And the woman who was giving us our tour, she said, now usually, we don't take people back into the coaches' offices because they're in preparation for games and whatnot. And at that time, Coach Carroll happened to be in his office. And so he said, no. Spencer, come on in. I'll let you sit in my chair and put your feet up on my desk. So we got a couple pictures of me lounging at the desk of Pete Carroll.
There you go.
That was probably a highlight because it was something that wasn't originally planned and just spur of the moment. And I have to tell you, Coach Carroll is a pretty genuine person.
It sounds that way. And I have to ask you, I know in the broadcast school up in Pullman now. Are you active on the radio up there? I got to tell you, I'm a grad of the Murrow School back in more years than I care to remember. But I was on KUGR back in the day. Does that still exist up there?
Oh yes. In fact, tomorrow, Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m., I am on KUGR radio.
Seriously?
Nice. I have a good friend, couple friends. Names are Alex Clark and James Alsup, and we actually just started last week our first sports talk show called Off the Bench.
There you go.
If you tune into KUGR.org,
oh my gosh,
live to that. So we don't have a radio station here in Pullman anymore. We're all just online.
Oh, really?
KUGR is still going strong.
FM 95, KUGR on the dial, if I remember correctly. It was a rock station when I was there, Spencer. Rock and roll.
Very good.
Yeah. So your sports show, so you're covering the Cougar football team. That's sweet, huh?
Yeah, in fact, of course, I had a big double overtime win over the Ducks a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun to talk about for our first show.
Oh, I bet. And then, tomorrow you've got the postscript to the Beaver game, and then, they better not stumble against Arizona, right? Because you want game day to come there in a couple weeks.
Oh, definitely. When we found out the game time for the Stanford game on Halloween night, I think that everyone has the same feeling that, okay, we better not screw this one up because we've got to keep that hope alive.
Have you got to interview Coach Leach yet?
I haven't actually, but I was able to over the weekend. I worked on the sideline for the Pac-12 networks.
Oh, did you?
What they call a parab, which is the big plastic dish that has
a
microphone
that
in
makes
it.
a sound, so you can hear all the sound.
On the sideline, exactly. And so I was on the Cougar sideline, and during commercial breaks, I'd have some fun and point my microphone toward the coaches and listen in on their conversations.
There you go. Yeah, you'd probably it'd probably be the HBO version if you're able to broadcast it all, right?
Definitely.
Okay, I got one question before we got to go to a break. If you could ask Pete Carroll a question right now as a reporter, what would you ask him?
What's going on with the defense?
Would you ask it in that tone?
Painful.
I think you got a lot of people agreeing with you there. The Legion of Gloom, maybe, right?
Yeah, gloom, doom, whatever you want to call it.
Hey, well, listen, we digress a little bit, but hang on the line for a little while longer. We want to spend a little more time talking to you about Make-A-Wish and how you're doing now and a little bit more about your life and connection with Make-A-Wish. So stick around, Spencer, and we'll be back with more of our program in just a moment.
Listening to Kadlec on Call on 610 KONA. This program provides general information only. Any comments or information presented are strictly for educational purposes. Kadlec and 610 KONA do not endorse any of the suggestions made by the presenter or callers. Now back to Kadlec on Call. Once again, Jim Hall.
And continuing our profiling of the Make-A-Wish organization around the country and around the state of Washington. And we're visiting with Spencer Anderson, a Hanford High School graduate, a current student at Washington State University, aspiring sports broadcaster. And he's a survivor of lymphoma. And he got to do an awesome wish through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and that was spend a weekend as a sports broadcaster following the Seattle Seahawks, which included a visit with Coach Pete Carroll. Al Michaels, the NBC broadcaster, was in town doing the game that weekend. He got to meet him, and so he's with us. And Spencer, there's some other famous people that just happened to pop in, and I want them to say hi to you real quick.
It's your helicopter mom and dad.
Oh, hello.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, we thought in the spirit of Make-A-Wish, we thought we'd throw a little curveball to you, Spencer.
Surprise.
And invite your mom and dad in to listen and talk to you.
It was, as I was on my way back to my house before I called in, I figured, I should text my mom to let her know I'll be on the radio because I'm not sure she knows. So I guess she knew.
Yeah, she was part of this little conspiracy, Spencer. But in fact, it was cute. When we were on the air in the first segment, she texted me, and I think it was said, "Hey, I'll be on the air in 5 minutes," and we're like, "We know." Well, why don't you guys? Pam is mom and Rob's the dad. But Pam, from your view, you got to listen. They were listening in. They've been listening into the whole program, but they were on when you came on, Spencer. But Pam, from your perspective and mom's perspective, talk a little bit about, I guess first of all, what it's like. Spencer talked when he got the diagnosis. Then obviously, as a parent, that's got to be just nothing worse.
It was a real shock. He had been in a lot of pain, and we thought maybe he had a kidney stone or something. And even when we went in for the surgery to do a biopsy, the surgeon mentioned cancer, and it just went right over my head. I didn't think that was a possibility.
So how did you, and feel free to jump in, Spencer, as well as, I guess, once you got over the shock of it, do you take on this, we're going to tackle this thing head on? Is that the attitude? Start with you, Spencer.
Yeah, I think when the initial diagnosis came in, I felt I was doing more of the comforting of my family than they were comforting me. It was definitely, I think I took the attitude of there wasn't going to be any other option than complete healing, and so we had to look at our options and move forward and take action instead of just worry.
And Mom, is that the case? Obviously, I'm sure you must have drawn a lot of inspiration with an attitude like that Spencer had.
Yes, he definitely rounded us all up. His two sisters were away at college, and they both came home for a weekend, and we had a wonderful time together. But very much he was convincing all of us that things were going to be fine, and we were going to work through this together.
During the course of that diagnosis and that initial treatment, Spencer, what was the timeline from when, I guess, you completed chemo and kind of started to get your life back to normal?
Yeah, so it was in the middle of March when I first started treatment, and I actually did it up in Sacred Heart Hospital, Children's Hospital in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first set of treatment, I was in the hospital for 11 days. And after that, I had to stay residing in Spokane. Our family was able to find another family who allowed us to live in their basement for the time being while I needed to be near that hospital in Spokane. And so I think my mom and I lived in Spokane for about 3 weeks after that. So that got us through the middle of April. And then I was able to start coming home between 5-day treatment cycles every couple weeks. And I had to do 6 of those, so I was finished with treatment by about the middle of July. But my recovery process, when I started growing my hair back and going to school, wasn't until later in September, I think.
And so now that's been what, 2 years, 2.5 years?
It's actually 3.5 years. It'll be 3 years this summer since I finished treatment. And yes, time has flown by. It's hard to believe it's already been 3 years.
Wow. Pam, from the Make-A-Wish standpoint, when obviously, and I think Meredith in the first segment talked about the impact that this has on recipients and recipients' families, that, it I guess takes your mind off it, but it is also help in that healing process, especially for somebody like Spencer, who was like bound and determined that I'm going to conquer this.
Most definitely. He did have to go through those 6 segments of treatment, and about 4 or 5, the number 5 one for sure, he was very despondent. It's like, I can tell the cancer is killed. I don't want to be doing this anymore. It's not fun. It's painful. I'm sick. And so focusing on the fact that he could start thinking about a Make-A-Wish really helped, I think, get him through that treatment.
So what did it mean to you? I mean, just to see I'm guessing he came home on cloud 9 after that weekend in Seattle with the Seahawks.
It was fabulous. We couldn't have given him a different Christmas present than that. And like he said, there were so many people he got to meet, and everyone that he met was genuine and supportive of him, and the whole Seahawks organization and the Make-A-Wish organization did everything they could. He was in the musicals at Hanford, and part of his wish, they let him go to a Fifth Avenue musical production while we were in Seattle.
Oh, very
as well.
nice. So you're on that famous Hanford drama graduate, huh, Spencer?
We had a lot of success, I guess.
Yeah, that's quite a program to go.
It was a lot of fun, and I think that, especially talking to a lot of people in Seattle, when they found out I had a theater background, that got a lot of them excited, because that's something that, as an aspiring broadcaster, it helps.
Have you always wanted to be a broadcaster?
I can't say I really made up my mind until about the time I went on my Make-A-Wish. I'd been thinking about it. I hadn't really, by my junior year in high school, didn't exactly know which direction I wanted to go in college. But definitely, actually, this Make-A-Wish trip really solidified in my mind that I wanted to come to the Murrow College at WSU and study for that.
Tell me a little bit about, you've also been active since the Wish in helping Make-A-Wish in other ways. Talk a little bit about the role you're playing, and obviously to keep granting wishes is something that's obviously required, because kids are still getting sick, unfortunately. But you've also gotten into the fundraising side as far as helping spread the worth of Make-A-Wish. Is that right?
Yeah, in fact, I feel like I've used my talents and skills mostly in this capacity, to go on TV and or radio to spread awareness about the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Last summer, there was a severe shortage of volunteers in the Tri-Cities, of Make-A-Wish volunteers. And again, I don't remember the figures exactly. I want to say that there were 23 Wish kids that were on standby and were waiting to receive their wish, and there were just not enough volunteers to help compensate. I did a television interview. I'm sorry, I can't remember which station now, but I think overnight they quadrupled the number of people who wanted to volunteer for Make-A-Wish, and in turn was able to help, I think, most of those children start to be successful in trying to grant their wishes. There's also other things that the Make-A-Wish Foundation does. Each January they have an airline mileage drive where people can donate their unused airline miles, and that can be donated to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they can use that to get their wish children and their families to destinations. And so each January with that, I've tried to go on the air again and just tell my story, and, you know, sometimes it tugs at the heartstrings, and people are more willing to volunteer their time and their resources to help children who were in the same situation as I was. The other thing to remember, I was 16 when I was diagnosed, and that for a childhood cancer patient is actually very old. Most cancer patients who are children are 6 years old or younger, and I can say that it's very very rewarding and gratifying to know that you're able to help out a child, especially at that age, when sometimes they're not fully aware of the treatments and what they're going through medically, but to be able to know that they have that wish, very gratifying to help out and make those children's lives that much more brighter.
Pam Anderson, Spencer's mom, what are you thinking when you sit and listen to your son talk so eloquently about what he's been through?
I think it's great. I think that, like he said, that Make-A-Wish was a turning point in his life in choosing what he wanted to do. And when he was on his wish trip, Spencer, you'll have to remind me who told you that when you're famous and you're good at what you do, then you can help other people.
Yeah, I met Seahawks broadcaster Tony Ventrella.
Oh, yes.
He writes for Seahawks.com.
Mm-hmm.
And he the first day I was there and through the weekend, I talked with him a couple times. And, yeah, that's basically exactly what he said, that the best part about being well-known or to have people read your work or to listen to you on the radio is that it puts you in a position where you can make a difference, where you can help a lot of people. And that's something that I've always remembered. Maybe the only thing exactly that he told me that's really stuck with me of all the other things that happened that weekend was when you're in a position where people will look to you and listen to you, that's when you have the most influence to do good.
And I was going to say, Tony Ventrella is an old TV sports guy in Seattle back in the day, and from your view going forward, I would think that experience maybe, as you'll draw on that, not only from sharing for the good for others, but even probably make you a better journalist, having been what you've been through, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that every person's experiences in life are very unique, and I think that that's, especially in a journalistic or in a journalism frame of mind, that everyone brings their own biases, I guess, to certain stories. But to be able to have had experiences which puts me in someone else's shoes, I think empathy is another big word that I learned that actually having gone through something will probably help in terms of, if there's something that's a story that's very heartbreaking, I probably have better experience and know how to deal with situations like that, and how to talk to families and people going through hard times because of my own experiences, for sure.
Well, I was going to say, do you have anything, not necessarily related to Make-A-Wish, but any requests from Mom and Dad to drop in the mail for you that you need to send before Thanksgiving break to tide you through to Thanksgiving break?
Well, I was definitely glad to have my mom and my brother visiting a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun.
Nice. Well, we have to take one more break. Can you hang for till the top of the hour?
I'd love to.
Awesome. That's Spencer Anderson, a Make-A-Wish recipient, a Tri-Cities own. He's currently attending school at Washington State University in the Murrow College of Communications. And his mom and dad, Spencer and Rob, are with us here live in the studio to talk about the great work that the Make-A-Wish Foundation does, not only around the Tri-Cities, but around the Northwest and around the country. We have to take our final break of the evening. We will return with our remaining minutes of Kadlec on Call in just a minute.
You're listening to Kadlec on Call on 610 KONA. This program is not a substitute for direct consultation with your own healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare provider for your specific condition, especially if you have or suspect you may have a medical problem. Now back to Kadlec on Call. Here again, Jim Hall.
And just a couple of minutes left talking about the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'm visiting with Spencer Anderson, a WISH recipient from the Tri-Cities, currently a student at Washington State University in Pullman. His parents are here, Pam and Rob. And before we get back to Spencer, I want to share a little bit of information. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is always in search of volunteers, certainly financial donors. And interestingly enough, they're also looking for WISH kids. I'm told that there are a lot of kids who would otherwise qualify for a wish that aren't getting the wishes. And so I guess if you happen to know someone, don't just assume that they have been referred to a wish. You can actually go on the website at akwa.wish.org and find the information where if you wanted to, you could refer someone who could be a candidate for receiving a wish. So just a couple of minutes left. I want to go back to the phone. Spencer, I want you to maybe tie all this together for someone maybe not only that's in your shoes. You touched on what it's like to be a young person who's been diagnosed with cancer. I assume your message would resonate for anyone who is diagnosed with cancer. Maybe what would your advice to them be, especially given the attitude that I know you had when you were first diagnosed?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I know a guy who went to my high school who's a couple years younger than me that was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago, and his outlook was not as good as mine, and it looks like it's a terminal situation. And it's hard for me to give advice to a situation like that, especially when I know that my success came from an attitude. And it's very difficult to, unless your attitude is in the right place, to really be successful, I think. So if I could just speak to anyone who's going through any sickness or a situation where it's a very difficult medical problem, it'd definitely be that your attitude really factors into the healing process. I'm convinced that positive thinking and the faith and prayers of others especially will help you get through and heal.
Well, I can't think of any better way to end our program. You're a dynamic young man, a very well-spoken young man, and I'm convinced you're going to go a long way in this profession. And again, I'm going to do a shameless plug for your show, Off the Bench, right? Tomorrow from 4 to 6?
Absolutely. Thursdays, 4 to 6 p.m. on KUGR.org.
God, just like a professional broadcaster would say it. Well, Spencer, continued great health and continued great luck with your career, and I'm sure you're just having a blast, aren't you?
I am. I'm having the time of my life up here.
All right, Mom, you get last word.
Wow. In a word.
All right. Well, Pam and Rob Anderson, you've raised a wonderful young man, a great spokesperson for Make-A-Wish. And Spencer, continued good success, and I hope to meet you in person someday soon.
Well, thank you very much. Love you, Mom and Dad.
Love you too, dear.
All right.
Now he wants to get on the mic.
Well, I think we have just enough time again to give that phone number and website, akwa.wish.org or 1-800-304-9474, and that's the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Again, our thanks to Spencer and his parents and to Meredith Fain from Make-A-Wish, Alaska and Washington. And thank you for listening to Kadlec on Call. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you back here again next Wednesday night.